I just leave. I go home. I go home to my life, and I take care of my cat and do all the stuff I'm supposed to do.
She's out, vanished, no warning, no grand exit speech, no tearful farewell at the View's table, just gone. Whoopi Goldberg has reportedly left the United States, fled to be exact, as the $800 million defamation lawsuit from rising conservative firebrand Karoline Leavitt kicks into full throttle mode. And oh boy, this isn't just a legal storm, it's a full-blown media reckoning. But it's official. Karoline Leavitt just did the unthinkable. She won.
Think how ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists. But they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years.
After months of courtroom drama, internet chaos, and behind-the-scenes scrambling from ABC executives, Karoline Leavitt has emerged victorious in her jaw-dropping $800 million defamation lawsuit against The View. Yes, you heard that right. The once invincible daytime talk show has been hit with the biggest loss in its history, and Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and Sunny Hostin, they're reeling. Their reputations in shambles, their network in panic mode, and Karoline, she just rewrote the rulebook. This is more than just a win. This is a cultural shift, a landmark moment where someone finally stood up to the mainstream media and said, enough. So how did we get here? What did The View say that crossed the line? How did Karoline turn a viral moment into an $800 million courtroom triumph? Buckle up, because this story is wild. Before we dive in, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and stick around, because what you're about to hear might just change the way you watch TV forever. Did you just hit subscribe? Awesome. Now let's break it all down. It started the way most firestorms do on The View, with a smug laugh, a sideways glance, and a jab so calculated it practically came with a disclaimer. Karoline Leavitt wasn't walking into enemy territory unprepared. She knew what kind of room she was entering, a stage where conservative women were rarely treated like equals, let alone welcomed. But she showed up anyway, dressed sharp, her posture calm, her tone measured. She was there to discuss policy, national security, and youth engagement in politics. The assignment was clear: speak truth to power. What she got instead? A verbal ambush disguised as morning chat.
They really don't like this woman. She's a good communicator. And so Joy Behar just offered her analysis on why Leavitt was picked for the role.
Joy Behar struck first. She squinted across the table, her voice dripping with sarcasm, and leaned in with that infamous smirk that could curdle milk. Let's be real, Karoline is not here for her brains. Trump probably thinks she's a 10. Laughter erupted, not the polite kind, but the kind meant to sting. Studio claps, snickers, smirks, it was all there. Then came Sunny Hostin. She didn't even wait for the audience to settle before lobbing her own verbal grenade. I mean, let's not pretend this is merit-based. She's a poster girl for privilege, plain and simple. The pile-on was shameless. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, Whoopi Goldberg leaned back, crossed her arms, and delivered what would become the quote that triggered legal hellfire. Without wokeness, you wouldn't even have a job. Boom! That was it. The clip spread like wildfire across social media, with hashtags like Karoline Setup and The View Out of Control gaining traction overnight. But what did Karoline do? No eye rolls, no defensive Twitter thread, no emotional breakdown on Instagram Live. She simply straightened her blazer, took a sip of water, and smiled.
Stating facts that your colleagues have stated in the past.
Okay,
now, as
I'm
for
sorry,
this
guys.
debate,
We're going to
the
come back out to the
expectation
panel.
for-
Karoline,
the
thank you very much for your time.
These women are completely out of touch with reality. And you're right, ABC should wake up.
Because in that moment, Karoline wasn't shaken, she was ready. And as soon as the cameras stopped rolling, she made the call that would change everything. She called her lawyers. The headlines dropped like bombs. Karoline Leavitt sues The View for $800 million? Legal chaos at ABC after defamation lawsuit. Conservative firebrand launches legal nuke on daytime TV. And suddenly, the smug laughter vanished. This wasn't a petty online feud or a political disagreement gone too far. This was serious. Karoline Leavitt had filed an $800 million lawsuit backed by a battalion of lawyers, airtight documentation, and a war chest of video receipts that painted The View in the worst light imaginable. At the center of it all, a single allegation: character assassination. But this wasn't a he said, she said. Karoline's legal team came locked and loaded with the kind of evidence that had media executives scrambling. They submitted segment transcripts highlighting exactly what was said and when. Raw studio footage, including off-air moments of laughter and back-patting. Internal Slack messages, where producers gleefully strategized how to trigger Karoline on air. Pre-show notes with one particularly damning instruction. Let Joy open with the looks jab. Whoopi will close with something scathing. That was the smoking gun. That was the proof it wasn't an interview. It was a takedown scripted for applause. And ABC? Oh, they were not ready. Executives went into panic mode. Legal teams held emergency calls. PR firms were brought in overnight. There were whispers about suspensions, rumors of network-wide fallout. Even ABC insiders admitted this wasn't just bad, it was catastrophic.
On President Trump's life echoed the sentiment that President Trump is a democracy. And if you're a deranged lunatic and you're mentally ill, you will believe that lie. And yes, you will take political, like we have seen in 2 instances against President Trump. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said that everyone who showed up to President Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden was that's despicable, dangerous, divisive rhetoric that is spewed by the Democrat Party every single day. And I'm so sick and tired of the media pointing the finger at Donald Trump and saying that he is sowing division in this country. He is not. The media is for pushing hoaxes like the one that you all pushed today, and the Democrat Party is for pushing lies about him. But the good news is Americans don't buy it. And that's why today President Trump is more popular than he has been since 2016, because people don't.
Suddenly, Karoline Leavitt wasn't just a guest on a morning show. She was the woman who cracked the ceiling on performative media takedowns and exposed the blueprint. She wasn't trending for a soundbite. She was trending because she did the unthinkable. She made The View finally answer for years of unchecked bias. And this was only the beginning. The moment the lawsuit made national headlines, the mood inside ABC flipped from smug to scrambled. Behind the glam sets and glittering lights of The View, panic was spreading like wildfire. Suddenly, the people who loved to talk were whispering, and the people who loved to laugh, they were dead silent. According to multiple insiders, the first to crack was Whoopi Goldberg. Yes, Whoopi, the queen of clapbacks, the untouchable moderator, the woman who once said, "I've said worse and walked away fine." Not this time. Whoopi reportedly reached out to a former colleague, someone who had worked both with her and Karoline. The message was soft, almost nervous. Can we sit down? Just talk. This doesn't need to go further. Except it already had. Then came Joy Behar. She's known for being brash, unapologetic, and fearless on air. But behind the scenes, totally different energy. Sources say Joy personally called one of Karoline's lawyers. Yes, you read that right, and asked if there was any way they could resolve things without more damage. She allegedly offered to write a statement, maybe even a public apology. It was desperate. And Sunny Hostin? Well, she wasn't trying to patch things up with words, she was crunching numbers. Because Sunny, the only trained legal expert on the show, knew exactly what was coming. She started holding private consultations with her own legal team outside of ABC's lawyers, panicked that she could be personally liable for millions. She reportedly asked multiple times if she could be removed from the lawsuit independently. Karoline's team didn't blink, because while The View scrambled to extinguish a legal wildfire, Karoline's team fanned the flames with cold precision.
Isn't it rich that The View is saying she got the job based on looks when DEI is all about based on looks?
ABC's boardroom became a war zone. Emergency meetings were held every day. Execs debated everything from settlements to public statements to, gulp, canceling the show. That word, cancellation, was first whispered in a late-night meeting between ABC's top legal counsel and their crisis PR team. It didn't stay quiet for long. Employees overheard it, texts leaked, Twitter caught wind. The View, once a ratings giant, was now a legal liability. But Karoline? She didn't budge, didn't blink, didn't soften. Her legal team dropped a one-line statement that sent chills through Hollywood. Accountability cannot be negotiated. Boom! That was the moment everything shifted. The View thought they could apologize their way out. Karoline made it clear they were going all the way. And then, the moment everyone had been waiting for. The courtroom lights, the cameras outside, the reporters fighting for seats, the legal showdown that no one thought would actually happen. Karoline Leavitt versus The View finally began. And let me tell you, it felt more like the Oscars than a lawsuit. Karoline walked in like a force of nature. Sleek navy suit, calm demeanor, not a hair out of place, no entourage, no dramatics. Just presence. She took her seat, folded her hands, and waited. Across the room, a different story. The View's hosts looked like they had just walked through a storm. Whoopi Goldberg, usually confident, loud, and loose, was stone silent. She wore oversized sunglasses indoors and avoided all eye contact. Her shoulders were tight. Her hands were shaking slightly. Joy Behar sat beside her, pale and rigid. She didn't even crack a joke, something she's known to do even in awkward moments. Sunny Hostin had papers in her lap and was nervously thumbing through them despite her legal training. Her face said it all. This was bad. And then the trial began. Karoline's legal team wasted no time. They started with the footage, a slow-motion compilation of the segment that sparked the lawsuit. It was worse than anyone remembered. They didn't just mock her once, they did it over and over, layering insult after insult, and with every jab, the courtroom grew quieter. You could hear every breath, every shift in a chair, every sharp intake of disbelief. Then came the documents, emails, Slack messages, pre-show notes. One was displayed on a massive screen in bold font. We need a viral moment. Karoline's the target today. The gasp that came from the gallery was deafening. Even the judge paused. Jurors turned to each other, stunned. One juror covered her mouth. Another shook his head slowly. The prosecution let the moment linger, let it settle. And then they dropped the cherry on top, a behind-the-scenes voice memo recorded after the taping where a producer was caught saying, "We got what we needed. She cracked. Camera caught everything." Except Karoline hadn't cracked. She sat there, composed, watching it all play out like a documentary she'd already seen 100 times. And Whoopi? She slowly lowered her head. Joy reached for water but barely drank it. Sunny fidgeted endlessly, because in that moment the truth was clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a takedown. And Karoline? She wasn't just winning in court. She was rewriting the rules. And then, the moment everyone was waiting for. The courtroom was packed. Cameras were rolling outside. Reporters had their pens ready. Karoline Leavitt sat quietly, hands folded. Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sunny Hostin, all dead silent. The jury filed in, faces unreadable. The foreperson stood up and looked straight at the judge. "On the count of defamation," she said, "we find the defendants liable." Boom! That one word sent shockwaves through the entire building. But it didn't stop there. ABC and the co-hosts of The View were ordered to pay $800 million in damages. Let that sink in, $800 million. It was more than just a financial blow. It was a cultural earthquake. The media world exploded. Twitter practically melted. TikTok lit up with reactions, memes, side-by-side breakdowns. YouTubers rushed to live stream the moment. Some even burst into tears on camera. The hashtags? Carolina wins. The View on trial. Media reckoning. Whoopi wrecked. Cancel The View. News anchors couldn't believe it. One even said live on air. We just witnessed the most expensive talk show mistake in television history. Meanwhile, Karoline, she didn't gloat. She didn't shout. She just stood up, thanked her lawyers, smiled at the cameras, and walked out like a total boss. And The View? Well, they had just become the headline.
Divisive and disgusting speech that any president, certainly in my lifetime, has ever given. He essentially waged war on half of the country by saying that we are all a threat to democracy because we believe in putting America first. It's not radical to want to put your country and your own people first. It's not radical to want to have a strong border, a strong military, and to unleash the might of your own economy, not economies around the world. You know, we have seen cultural Marxism trickling its way through every institution in this country. The public school system, the higher education university system, Hollywood, big tech, the corrupt mainstream media that I fought against in President Trump's White House are indoctrinating my generation of Americans into hating our country, hating one another based on race and gender and sex and all of this other BS, quite frankly.
The morning after the verdict, chaos. Inside ABC's headquarters, panic mode hit a new level. Sources say top advertisers, including some major global brands, pulled their sponsorships within hours. PR teams were overwhelmed. Legal teams were on 24-hour watch. Executives were reportedly arguing over whether The View should be rebranded or completely shut down. One internal memo was leaked. It read, "We underestimated this guest. We underestimated this lawsuit, and now we're facing the worst PR crisis in network history." The memo was marked urgent. As for the hosts, Whoopi hasn't returned to set. Joy disappeared. Sunny, radio silent. Producers are reportedly ghosting press inquiries, and backstage insiders say the mood is funeral level. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt is being hailed as a modern media warrior. Journalists who once brushed her off as just another political influencer are now calling her a champion of accountability and a conservative AOC, but with receipts. Her social media exploding. Supporters are flooding her comments with praise. One viral post said, "Karoline didn't just win in court, she won a generation's trust." Another, "The girl who stood up to daytime TV and won."
Reporting out there that is putting the onus on this White House for the increased cost of eggs. I would like to point out to each and every one of you that in 2024, when Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure, egg prices increased 65% in this country. We also have seen the cost of everything, not just eggs. Bacon, groceries, gasoline have increased because of the inflationary policies of the last administration. As far as the egg shortage, what's also contributing to that is that the Biden administration and the Department of Agriculture directed the mass killing of more than 100 million chickens, which has led to a lack of chicken supply in this country, therefore a lack of egg supply, which is leading to the shortage.
Some fans are even making merch. T-shirts with 800 Maller's silence printed across the front. Stickers that say, "Next time you mock someone, lawyer up." And as The View scrambles to find its footing, Karoline, she's standing taller than ever.
Do you want to take this?
So you cannot be attractive and smart? I will try to give Joy the benefit of, well, thank you. I try to give Joy the benefit of the doubt that she didn't see that briefing. Because if you saw that yesterday on numerous topics, no big binder, I think she might have had a different impression of this young woman who held her own.
I mean, you would have to give her the benefit of the doubt that she did absolutely no research or reading about anything dealing with Karoline Leavitt before she made that remark. Because Karoline Leavitt she went to St. Anselm College. She worked for WMUR
Ran for Congress?
In New Hampshire. She ran for Congress at the age of 25, put out a very good campaign. She lost by 8 or 9 points, but she still put on a good campaign. Then she was the press secretary for the Trump campaign, going on TV literally every day.
Well, heavily pregnant and a new mom.
Pregnant. Yeah, she's a new mother. And then she goes out yesterday and gives and this again, this is speaking very objectively, because I've watched every press secretary since going back to Marlon Fitzwater. Yeah, I'm that old. And she went out there for her very first briefing at the age of 27 years old, the youngest press secretary ever, and did a terrific job.
So what happens next? Well, the ripple effects are already hitting everywhere. Producers on other talk shows rewriting guest guidelines. Legal teams scrambling to train hosts on how not to defame someone. Media execs holding hush-hush meetings on narrative discipline. Because The View just proved one thing. You can't say whatever you want anymore and walk away with a smirk. Not when someone like Karoline Leavitt is watching. Not when people are finally done being silent. And Karoline, she's not slowing down. She isn't bragging. She isn't screaming. She's just winning with facts, strategy, and a calm voice that shook one of the loudest shows on TV to its core. And let's be honest, this verdict didn't just change Karoline's life. It changed everything. It taught every host, every producer, every network a lesson they'll never forget. Words have power and consequences.
Attacking a woman for her looks or age isn't very progressive. Let's bring in Sky News contributor Kosha Garda. Kosha, particularly that last clip that we played, it was so condescending. The way that she was scolding her as if she was a schoolgirl, suggesting she needed to do her homework. I find it so hypocritical when these so-called, caring, progressive voices just turn so nasty like that.
Yes, and as you mentioned, with conservative women, there's a long list of that, both of Trump's previous press secretaries, females, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Kayleigh McEnany, other figures like his campaign manager the first time, Kellyanne Conway, Sarah Palin very famously had to bear the brunt of a lot of this. So people are used to that. I think in their bubble of the audience that The View speaks to, that's probably kind of what the group think is. So one defense, I guess, is that she was speaking to her audience, but you take it outside of that bubble the way you are right now, and we all...
Now it's your turn. Do you think Karoline was right to take this all the way to court? Did The View finally cross a line it couldn't erase? And is this the beginning of a brand new era of accountability in media? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're reading every one. And before you go, Smash that like button if you believe truth matters. Hit subscribe so you never miss a single update in this historic drama. Because Karoline Leavitt just proved it's not a joke anymore. It's a verdict, and The View may never recover. Stay tuned.